Hey, my name is Carey from Terpene Therapy Podcast, and I had a great time blazing up with Dro TV today. Make sure you check out Dro TV on Instagram and YouTube and wherever else you can find them. And I got to say, it's a really fun podcast. So make sure you keep watching and checking out for them every single week.
Welcome back to My First Time, the show where our guests get to tell their story of the first time they got high from marijuana. Today, I'd like to welcome our guest, Carey, from the Terpene Therapy Podcast. What's going on, my friend?
How's it going? It's nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you as well. Excited to talk some terpenes today.
Always.
Yes. You can find more of Carey in the Terpene Therapy Podcast. Instagram, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, and Patreon as well. So, Carey, thanks for coming on Dro TV today. Let everybody know where you're located and a little bit about what you provide to the community.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, and I appreciate you having me on your podcast. It's a real wonderful opportunity, in my opinion. So, thank you for that. And yeah, my name's Carey, and so I own and operate Terpene Therapy Podcast. We're based out of Louisville, Kentucky, and that's kind of the starting point for this whole thing. We're hoping to be traveling around to all different types of cannabis markets here in the next 8 months to a year or so. We're getting the groundwork laid out. But yeah, it's just a cannabis information podcast, I guess. But also, it's kind of just like the way that I see myself is just kind of like your buddy that you sit down with every single week, and he might tell you something weird, he might tell you something cool, or he might tell you what's going on in the marketplace. It's always good to come check out a new episode every single week. So yeah, that's pretty much what we got going on over here.
Excellent. Well, I do love the concept, and I don't know that 5-10 years ago, terpenes were on the forefront, the subject of conversation with a lot of connoisseurs. So,
Oh no, definitely not. But it's something that's come sort of to the forefront in the marketplace, and I think is something that terpenes especially are really kind of I won't say the most important, but they're definitely more important when it comes to deciding what strain of cannabis works well for you versus strains that might not work as well. That's just kind of how I've always seen it. Yeah.
for sure. What you smoking on, Carey?
So this is some White Ash Cannabis Co. This is their I want to say this is the Wookie Cake. But honestly, I found this half joint smoked on the counter, and I don't remember. It's from before the honeymoon, and so we were gone for 2 weeks. I don't quite remember what's exactly in this, but definitely some White Ash Cannabis Co. They're based out of Michigan, and you'll be able to find them on store shelves, here in the next few months or so. Yeah.
Nice. Is that a pre-roll? Something you roll your
Oh
own?
no! Listen, I have a stance on pre rolls, and I think that majority of them are kind of shit in my opinion. Axiom out of California does like a hash wrap type of pre-roll where instead of paper it's just hash. I'll smoke those all day. But other than that, I trust a joint that I roll myself a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't disagree. When I first started buying dispensary weed, my buddies were like, just get the pre-rolls, they're cheap. And I
Mhm.
don't know, maybe I was pulling on them too much, but they don't burn like the joints I roll, and they would canoe and they'd burn too fast. So I would end up just taking the pre-rolls, cutting them open and re-rolling them myself. So it was a waste.
Oh yeah. And I always find that the material is a little bit inferior in the pre-rolls as well. I don't know if they're putting necessarily the best stuff in them.
Yeah.
That
I would venture to say they're not. If I was a skeptic, which sometimes I am, I would say that I'm probably guessing they're not putting the top notch, the
No,
quality
no.
stuff in there.
And I think it's important to be a skeptic in today's market. I'm a skeptic more often than not when someone's trying to tell me something's good. I'm trying to figure out some more information about the farm that it came from, the growth processes involved into making the product, and just general things like that. I think that those bits of information are a lot more important than flashy branding or trying to create hype behind a brand and try to sell the weed. I'd rather have something that's grown well personally.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. Uh, well, Carey, the show is My First Time. So
Yep.
we want to know about the first time you got high.
And it's a little bit of, I don't know if shameful is the correct word, but maybe I view it as the worst way you could possibly consume weed. And
Okay.
so I was 14 years old, which first of all is too young. If you're out there listening, um, you shouldn't start consuming cannabis, in my opinion, until you're about like somewhere around 20, 21 years old. There's some brain development things going on with that. But for me, I was 14 years old down at the skate park in Louisville, and just like many other people's first time, we decided to buy like $10 worth of weed, no clue the strain, just some purple mids, and put it in a blunt wrap, and we proceeded to smoke it. And so for me, it's like I've heard people say that they don't get high the first time or that they don't enjoy it the first time, like it's either not enough or too intense. For me, it just felt like something clicked in my brain, and all the like multiple trains of thought, which is like from the ADD thing that I got going on, just kind of slowed right down. And so I've always found that cannabis for me is something that's like a good equalizer. And from that day, it always made me feel like more present, I guess, in the current moment rather than trying to deal with all the different trains of thought. But yeah, it was actually really wonderful. We smoked the blunt, and the first effect that I noticed actually was my my sense of vision, like the color contrast just went up. And down at the skate park there's so much graffiti, and I'm a big fan of that style of art. I think it's the voice of the people, first of all, and second, the color schemes and color palettes that are used in graffiti, especially the artists around where I'm from, super super wild and just crazy to look at. And so you smoke weed at 14 years old, your mind's going to be blown by all the different colors and
Yeah.
designs that you're seeing. And then I realized, oh, skateboarding's a lot of fun too when you're stoned. So everything went downhill from there. But yeah, it's definitely, I would not recommend a blunt though. If you're gonna roll something up that's flower, use a raw, in my opinion, and a raw black if you can find them.
Okay. Did it make your skateboarding any better? Were you a better skateboarder after you smoked?
Listen, I've always been kind of trash at skateboarding,
Okay.
but I think my enjoyment of the experience of it was a lot more I guess a lot more fun. I just remember really enjoying. Oh, I guess kind of smoking weed got me into longboarding a little bit more because I really enjoyed the sensation of just like riding down like bombing hills and like doing that kind of stuff more so than like skating at the park when I smoked weed. It was like I'd just love to just ride around. And as I would get older, I would just ride around my neighborhood on the skateboard all day, 10, 12 hours a day, have like 4 or 5 joints rolled up for the day, and just I'd love just riding around. So it kind of just made me really enjoy doing like the long distance like cardio stuff, I guess, too. Because I've transitioned into different sports later on throughout my life that all have to do with like endurance sports and things like that. And I feel like weed has kind of played a part in that, to be honest.
Nice. Okay. So let's fast forward several years. What got you into the Terpene Therapy Podcast? You guys discuss the importance of terpene profiles, quality of cannabis. When did you first discover the word terpene and what it actually meant? And what made you want to start a podcast to educate people and talk about different terpene profiles?
Oh, I really appreciate you asking this question because I bother all my friends back at home with how much I talk about this. So I learned about the word, I guess terpene. I would have learned about that in like 2012, 2013, around there, because I started doing like just sort of homemade hydrocarbon extractions, where you get the butane and the flour and you run it through the tube and do all that. And so in getting into the cannabis extraction world, I wanted to educate myself as much as possible in what I was doing, and I learned that one of the things that I needed to do to improve the quality of the concentrates that I was making was to focus on terpene preservation and keeping the temps low while purging, and making sure that all the equipment that you're working with is as cold as possible whenever you're doing the extraction and processing as well. Um, I just felt like once I read that, like I wish I could. I think it was Future 4200 is the forum that I learned a lot of my extraction processes from, but that and YouTube. But so in learning about cannabis extraction, I would say definitely that's where I learned about terpenes and why they're so important and why you want to preserve them as much as possible, not only in your concentrated material, but also your flower and your edibles that you eat as well. They really do play a big part in terms of how the cannabis strain will affect you.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's as far as like when I learned about terpenes, I think, and then if my knowledge is a little growing a little bit more and more each year, and nowadays I try and look for strains that I know are high in specific terpenes that I like. So, I'm a big fan of strains with beta myrcene in them, as well as beta caryophyllene. Those typically are a little bit more relaxing strains when you have those terpenes being dominant in the terpene profile. Amosine is another one that I look for, and that one's really like a nice, like pungent herbal kind of smell. That almost has like a floral scent to it as well. Really, really interesting flavor. And I know if I've got something that's with that, I'm probably going to enjoy the effects. But yeah, and going into now why I decided to kind of take terpene therapy and make it the community that it's growing into. I first of all, I feel like the terpene therapy name is kind of it's got two consonants, it's alliterative, and so I think that it sticks in the ear. It's a strong brand name, and I think that terpenes have kind of always been like for me, I guess, therapeutic in a sense, especially when I crack open a fresh jar of hash rosin or some full melt. When you get those terpenes in your nose, you can't help but have a smile on your face. You know what I
Sure.
mean? So it makes you happy. It makes you look forward to digging into that jar of hash and getting a nice old tasty dab. And I felt like if I if I'm educating myself so much, I look around and I want everyone else to have access to that same pool of knowledge that I've been trying to accumulate. And I feel like the best way to do that is through entertainment. I think combining entertainment and education is one of the best ways to educate people. And in turn, creating an educated consumer base is one of the biggest disruptors in an industry that is focused on mediocrity and pushing the highest profit margin product out the door rather than focusing on quality for the people that are consuming their products. So it's kind of combining education for people that are my friends and other people that choose to listen to the podcast, with brand awareness and trying to, push for higher quality in the future. I think that the only way that we have a high quality market is if the consumer is educated. And so I want to try and play a part in that. I guess, who knows? I could just be hitting the weed too much too and not really know exactly what's going on with it, but that's at least the idea that I have in my mind and the vision that I try to work towards every day with terpene therapy.
No, I love that. I love the name of the podcast. I'm a markets and economics guy, and uh, in a true free market, the consumer is the one that steers the direction of the businesses. In other words, when there's an educated consumer and they say, where's your product packaging? Where is this made from? How many terpenes? And you call out the business. If a business isn't providing the information that the consumer wants, the consumer is going to go somewhere else.
Right.
So where we have this control, whether it's it's mostly government control because they're the ones that tell us whether this thing's legal or not and how many people get licenses and stuff like that. There's limitations to, if I'm one of 10 guys with a license and I'm not required to share that information, why would I spend the money as a corporation to provide this information to you? Which is where podcasts like yourself and other educational content that's out there, when the consumer says, I'm sorry, I'm not going to buy this because it doesn't have this label, or, it's, you're not sharing the information that I'm looking for. That's usually, when you go back through history, when we had early 1900s, more realistic free markets, that's really what happened. A business either succeeded by listening to the wants of their consumer, or some other business came along that did and pushed those other people out. So I think that's where I would like to see this industry headed, is where certainly everybody should be able to grow in their own home.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. I think, especially you see it up in Michigan, a lot of companies lobbying against the rights of caregivers and people being able to grow more than, just a. I think the limitations on the amount of plants that you can grow in your own home are extremely arbitrary. And I think that, lobbying against people being able to do that's ridiculous. But yeah, go on though. I think what you were saying is absolutely correct.
Yeah. Even to your point, limitations on how much you can grow. Not everything succeeds. I could start with 10 plants. I could end with two. Two of those one could end up being the one, and the other one doesn't cure properly, or whatever. So like you said, it's arbitrary, and it's usually a number devised by somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about anyway. Carey, personal side note, I got to ask, that microphone, I don't know if it's the depth perception, but can you put your hand on it? I want to see how big it is.
So
that is a big boy. Okay. All right.
It's not just the microphone. So this is actually it's just a Shure SM7B, but it's got and so I have like an audio production background. So this is just a little. It's called a Chaotica eyeball, and this one's designed specifically for their SM7B. But it's kind of just a little it's a vocal booth that fits on the microphone instead of having a vocal booth. That way I can focus more on art in the background and things like that, and more on the well, we're renovating the set right now. This is you're actually getting to see like kind of a behind the scenes little renovation thing going on with this, but we're gonna have like the whole thing optimized for more of a like a product promotion thing. You can't do that if there's like huge pads and everything everywhere.
Sure.
It doesn't look aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. No, I was just curious because
it's a big boy though. It's a big boy here.
I couldn't tell if it was a screen, if it was like the perception of the Well, once you put your hand on it, but dope. No worries. I meant to ask you in the beginning when we started, and it would bother me if I didn't ask you. So
yeah, I understand completely.
I'm an audio guy too. I was a DJ for over 20 years, and I got an audio guy producing my podcast. So we're big on that. That's why I was discombobulated when we started, because we had moved everything around in here to shoot a video of me sitting down in front of the screen. So we had to lower everything, and
right.
Didn't feel right when we started. So no worries. So you're in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh yeah.
What's the scene like in Louisville?
Okay, well, I mean, as far as like the laws go, it's illegal here in Kentucky, but the scene in Louisville is I like to think it's a little bit more aware of what's going on in the world outside of this state. I think that as far as, and I think this actually is a good way to bring this topic up. Kentucky, as far as a state, has been known for their cannabis quality since the 50s, 60s, around that time. It's cannabis has been a part of our culture in this state, even though it's deep in the middle of the South. It's something that we, at least, I can't speak for every single person here, but I know that it's something that people that grow it here take great pride in terms of like the quality. And the soil here is exceptional for cannabis growth as well. There's something to it that it has to do with, I guess, the mineral content, or maybe how the actual soil is textured in terms of how the roots can grow. But outdoor cannabis from Kentucky is there's something to it. Um, with it being illegal, of course, you have to maintain a little bit of discretion. In Louisville, though, it's decriminalized, so I believe anything under 32 grams of flour, if you're found with it, is essentially a traffic ticket. So people are a little bit more open with it here. Um, it's not uncommon, especially if there's like a concert or an event going on downtown, to kind of smell it when you're walking around. Uh, but yeah, and there's quite a bit of good weed here too. But I think that's kind of everywhere nowadays. I think with the power of the internet, good weed kind of finds its way everywhere around the world. But
People have closets, we've got grow rooms, we've got better lights, better access to information. Yeah.
Mhm. Especially with the indoor stuff, like you're saying, with like the closets and the tents nowadays, like that's really kind of like going crazy. When you need to maintain discretion, I think that that's a really, really good solution. And that's kind of what we're seeing, especially in more of like a city environment. But I tell you what, once you go out kind of into the country a little bit, we've got a lot of hemp farms in Kentucky, and it's kind of the same plant, so it's you'll find it out there. There's a lot of stuff going on outdoor, and I think that when the cannabis market finally becomes legal here, there's going to be, Kentucky's going to really, it's going to get put on the map due to the pride in which we take, producing cannabis flower. And I think our concentrate and our hash makers here are, top quality too, in my opinion. A lot of people care about it here, and I think that's what's important. It's not, it is a way to make money, but, we don't have the same thing where it's like in states where the market is legal, you have people just kind of jumping into the industry with a lot of money in their pockets, but not a lot of skin in the game, essentially, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
So is this like we had the moonshiners, is the Kentucky weed, is it like the next generation of the early moonshiners? Is that why the weed's so good? Because of we had all these skills to hide what we were doing, and so it just kind of progressed into cannabis?
Yes, I would say that, but I would argue that it's a little bit more complex as well. I think that just agriculture is very prevalent in Kentucky, and understanding how to really work with plants and the soil, and living soil has been the thing in Kentucky for just years and years and years before people really were even calling it living soil as like a trend. In my opinion, it's and of course people have been doing that everywhere, but you know in Kentucky, I think it's more so just the culture of, lots of farms here. I think, you get people that actually know how to cultivate other crops that's going to transfer. Cannabis is produce just like anything else. I think that if you know how to make good quality produce, you can make good quality cannabis, and that is very deeply rooted in the culture of the people in Kentucky, at least from my perspective. There's other people out there that might say different.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people talk about cannabis. It's a plant, it's medicine, but they look at it as food. And we have endocannabinoid systems, not necessarily consuming it as an edible, but just consuming it in general, whether it's through inhalation or edibles, or but to treat it like food and have it be just like you'd go to the grocery store. And if we look at it that way, that maybe I'm somewhat spiritual, but if I've got a garden. And so when I eat something that I've grown, it has more of a connection to me. And so maybe that's something with the cultivation practices in Kentucky, but as well, anybody that is, I've got a friend that grows. So fortunately, I'm like the second guy that touches it, right?
Right.
It's not all these different hands that works its way down. So I certainly have a stronger connection with it as well.
Mhm. And the quality is a lot better too when because I used to grow myself. It's just with the laws here, growing, unfortunately, does carry a bit of a stiffer penalty than simply possession. I'm not exactly sure why, but because I do believe all those laws are a little bit arbitrary. But whenever I did used to grow back in the day, uh, it's just that always ended up being some of my favorite stuff. But also because I know what types of strains that I like to work with, and back in the day, let's see, this would have been between like 2011 to like 2015 or whatever. I had a good like 4 year stretch where I was really kind of going hard with it. The Amnesia back then was one of my favorites because it has like a cedar wood type of terp going on with it that I hadn't found in any other cut. And I think that being able to as someone that grows it, being able to take that same cut of a strain and tweak the growing conditions over and over and over on each run. It's like you're saying, it allows you to develop that connection with the plant and really give it what it needs to reach its full potential. And you're taking the time. You're not, this happens in the traditional market as well as the new recreational medical markets that have emerged. Um, I think a lot of product is rushed to the shelf, and I think that it's not, people, there's no connection to it. It's like you're saying, you have people that are growing 25K plants in a warehouse, and they're not, there's no emotional connection to it. They need to get those things in and out the door as quick
Sure.
as they can. Um, yeah, I don't know exactly where we're going with this now, but I do agree with you that I think there is something to be said about having that connection to the crop, as well as being able to take skills from just agriculture in general. That's gonna help Kentucky kind of stand out from the pack once we get our shit together,
Sure.
essentially.
Sure. Awesome. Well, dude, we got a couple minutes left. Why don't you tell us on the Terpene Therapy podcast some of the guests you've interviewed, and if someone was going to check out the podcast, what they can expect to hear?
Okay, so I guess a lot of the people that I interview now are glass blowers and cannabis breeders. But I'm looking to expand to any and everybody who is involved in the cannabis industry in some way, or if you're not even involved in the cannabis industry. I believe that cannabis consumption branches throughout all industries that we have. So if you just enjoy cannabis and you want to come on and promote your work or service or whatever it is that you provide to the community, I want to promote that. So yeah, that's I'll have anyone on who's willing to be on. But some of my favorite guests that I've had on so far, definitely Kailu Glass. One of my favorite glass blowers. I should have brought his piece up here and put it on there, but it definitely a really skilled glass artist. Another one of my favorite interviews, definitely the Max Select Seeds interview. That's a cannabis breeder out of Colorado, and he has a really crazy story. I'm not going to tell you what it is on here. You'll have to go check out the episode. But definitely should not be alive. But he's here to tell it. And yeah, so let's see, what else is there? Cannabis terpene therapy essentially is just sitting down with your buddy every single week on Thursday and lighting up a fat joint, ripping a fat dab, and never quite knowing what you're going to hear, but you probably learn something. Um, and I just try to provide education as well as entertainment to the community. I want to make sure that everyone out there is smoking on the highest quality that they can possibly smoke on, and knowing that there's plenty of brands out there to avoid because they really just want your money and they're not trying to help you out, or there's no symbiosis within the relationship of the producer and the consumer. But and I think that that should change. But yeah, that's essentially who I am and what I do, and it's just the beginning right now. This is the first 8 months that we've been doing this, so I'm really excited to see where this goes and how the community grows. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say for myself on that.
Awesome. Wow, that was great. Hey, everybody. I want to quickly mention Food Forest Abundance.
Food forest abundance is a great way to create your own self-sustaining food forest and naturally occurring ecosystem that's commonly found in nature, but designed specifically for you. Through multiple layers of trees, shrubs, herbs, vines, rhizomes, mushrooms, and perennial vegetables, you can become your own supply chain without the typical maintenance required of a garden. From small spaces to large areas, both urban and suburban, Food Forest Abundance wants us to get back to our roots in nature by engaging with our food production in a meaningful way. For more information, click on the link in the description below and start your journey today. Okay, let's get back to today's episode.
Well, Carey, thanks for being an awesome guest today on My First Time. Let everybody know the best place that they can find more of you.
Okay, well, I appreciate you having me on here. And the best place that you can, the best place that you can keep up with terpene therapy is definitely on Instagram. You can also find our interviews on YouTube. However, now that I have a little bit more time to put into terpene therapy, we'll be having every single episode uploaded as a video coming soon. And you can check out other previous interviews on video on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Terpene Therapy Podcast. You can also find us on Patreon if you really want to support the podcast, patreon.com/Terpene Therapy Podcast. And if you just on your general social medias, and you can find us on all of your preferred podcast. No, I'm jumbling my words here. Preferred podcast platform is.
Excellent. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please do us a favor, go down there and hit the like button and subscribe to Dro TV so that you don't miss more awesome guests like Carey here from the Terpene Therapy Podcast. And I don't ask much. Throw us a like, a share, comment, help us with the algorithm, because we need more episodes like this out there. So, Carey, thanks again.
Oh, and if I could say one more thing, don't smoke blunts.
Don't smoke blunts, okay?
Yeah, that's all I got to say.
All right. Well, that's it for today. And as always, smoke them if you got them. What's up, Dro TV family? You can now stream the audio version of all these episodes on your favorite podcast player. And if you like more episodes like this, check out this playlist we put together over here for you. And if you haven't already, subscribe to us on YouTube. You don't want to miss more great content from Dro TV. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, smoke them if you got them.